like to welcome you on behalf of the Adventure Studies Department. The Adventure Studies Department has brought Doug Ammons to Kamloops to celebrate, it's our 20th anniversary in adventure education. So Doug is part of the speaker series we're having here. So it's my privilege and honor to introduce Doug to you. Doug has been, his writing and his storytelling has been influential in the pedagogical practices of the paddling program. And I'd say that Doug's storytelling and perspective has been, he's brought an important dialogue to the sport of whitewater kayaking. Both from a historic perspective, also in tackling current issues in the sport, and certainly with a vision towards the future. So before I hand the stage over to Doug, I'll just maybe run through just a few of his impressive accomplishments. So Doug has been a world-class kayaker for over 25 years, doing a number of first descents. Most notably, his solo descent down the Grand Canyon of the Stikine, which had him recognized by Outside Magazine as one of the top 10 game changers in adventure sports. So on top of all his feats on the water, Doug is also an excellent storyteller. With a number of publications, he has 2 books, Laugh of the Water Nymph and Whitewater Philosophy. On top of that, he makes regular contributions to a variety of outdoor magazines. On top of all that, he's an accomplished filmmaker, producing a variety of documentaries for ESPN, National Geographic, and the Outdoor Life Network, as well as producing his own movie, Wild Water. So, without further ado, I give you Doug Ammons.
Well, I hope you can hear me well enough. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you'll enjoy the show. So, you gonna get these lights turned?
Yes.
So, I'm very appreciative of being here. Thank Sherman and Angela for asking me. Before I start the show, I wanted to say a couple of things, which is, in 1995, I went to Nepal on an expedition, put together with some friends, Charlie Muncie, Scott Lindgren, and Jerry Moffat. And we did a river called the Tule River. It's in the far western part of Nepal, called the Dolpa, the most remote and the poorest part of a very poor country. We had to go a long ways back near the Tibetan border. And up there, at about 14,000 feet, I ran into some very interesting people. And this little girl here in Scott's lap is named Chiring Lung Lama. And she was hanging around our camp. She's a single daughter of a single mom in a village of about 20 people at about 14,000 feet. About 3 days or 4 days walk from the nearest, what you'd call a town, which is 400 people, and a 26-day walk, one way, to the nearest road. So I ended up, through several people who were helping us, helping with these two little schools. There was one school at that time that later branched out into 2, which a boarding school would take kids from outlying villages and bring them into to Dunai, which is this village of 400 or 500. And then they could stay there and go home for the holidays, because otherwise it's the only place, there are no other schools. So I ended up sponsoring Chiring, and then over the years sponsoring other kids as well, and developing a real connection to this place. So Chiring here is one on the left. This one, she's about maybe 6. And so she would go home on weekends, which is a 3-day walk at about 8,000 vertical feet back up to visit her mom. And so that was in 1995, and here she's now 23. She went through the school, turned out to be very apt, and ended up, we sponsored her through college. So through high school and then through college at Kathmandu. She's graduating now, and along with another one of the people of her same class, super motivated, coming basically from subsistence farming and herding. They're smart and incredibly motivated. So I just got her, hopefully, a position along with one of the other students at graduate school at the University of Montana. So to me, it's a fantastic success story about what happens when you give people a little bit of opportunity. And it's another statement about if we're going to extend ourselves out into the third world especially, it really behooves us to think a little bit about what our impact might be, what it is, what it might be, and think about how we might further some other worthy projects. So basically, with that opportunity, she's moved from a 10th century herding and subsistence society to the 21st century. So this is a sister school at Tecumseh, which is down about 12,000 feet down up another side valley. And I like this picture because, it's like we all get enmeshed in our own lives and we have our own problems and we see, things that seem incredibly important to us. And here, there are like 20 kids in this, and they basically got nothing. And I swear, if you look through, you'll see 20 grins from ear to ear. So it doesn't take very much to be happy. And I think that's a fundamental question that a lot of us in our culture need to ask ourselves. So, I want to talk a little bit about the beauty of water. I think everybody has the experience that they get drawn into the natural world. Some of us get drawn into sports of various sorts, other activities. Some part of the natural world reaches out to us and just seems like this exquisite, fun thing. We learn different skills, we blend ourselves into it. And so of all those different kinds of sports, for me, one of the biggest things is flowing water. So I've had this 50-year love affair with flowing water. And so tonight I'm just going to talk a little bit about the steps that took from, kind of my own funny little beginnings and where it led to. So these are one of these photos, you get when you're a kid, and you look at it later and you're all embarrassed. I'm the guy on the far right. So I was a swimmer. I grew up in western Montana, right in the middle of the wilderness. And so we climbed, we hiked, we backcountry skied, we cross-country skied, we paddled, and it was an incredible place in the 60s to grow up, because basically the wilderness was right in my backyard. And among other things, I had this penchant. I loved water. I loved jumping off things too. So jumped off bridges, off cliffs, and I love that feeling, of just the instant. And you have to know what you're doing, or otherwise it's really painful, right? You've all been there. And that moment when you leap off the solid ground, you feel gravity. Okay, you get that in all these different sports. You get this all these different activities, and that moment is one of those moments of truth, where suddenly you are either at the mercy of or you're playing with gravity. So it's also the era of Neanderthal boating. So the only boats around, there are no plastic boats, it's all fiberglass. And fiberglass is brittle, you put it on, you try to miss the rocks. If you don't miss the rocks, this is what happens, and then you're busy glassing your boat together, trying to make it fit for the next weekend where it'll actually float. In that era, there were a number of paddlers really started probably in the early 60s, and I was lucky enough, right from the beginning, everybody I paddled with a guy named Walt Blackadar. And he was sort of the grand old man of paddling. He, from our standards, he's maybe an intermediate, but what he was able to do is look at things that nobody else would touch and say, you know what, I think I can do that. And sometimes he got hammered. He actually had quite a good role. He had health problems later. He ended up dying in an accident on the South Fork of the Payette. But the guy was fearless. And he really ushered in this era in the West in particular, this era of adventure and looking for new places and seeing the world as something more. So this is a bad photo of the Stikine, or rather the Susitna in Alaska. And so Walt did numerous trips up to the Susitna and got hammered. Did the first descent of the Alsac River in the Yukon. He was the guy who was stepping out in ways that nobody else was thinking. And at the same time, another guy who was kind of right in there, just a little bit after Walt, was Rob Lesser. So I grew up in this era where we're trying to make our own boats. We're trying to find what is possible with this new sport. What do we have here? What's this tool that we can use? This thing called a kayaker. It's 13 feet long. It's made out of brittle fiberglass. God, it's a lot of fun.